So next week is already scheduled, the first 3 days. We're dealing with what's called a mammal project. You'll receive more information as that arises. And if you're watching this now, perhaps you'll be watching it again if you are to miss class next week. So hopefully we can see that this is the best way that I feel that we can have you get content when you're gone, okay? So behind this board, with what we've covered so far, hopefully we can see that with that classifying of mammals, that's what zoology is about. All that vocab that you see, that is what zoology is like. There is a lot of vocab. There's no way to get around learning about animals without a lot of vocabulary. That's just the way it is, okay? I don't mean to sound passive with that, but I think you've heard us give an example like this, for instance. I can maybe think of 3 types. If you wanted to say, go get me a hammer, okay? Well, what does a hammer mean to you? Chances are it's a claw hammer. That's what we're going to say. But is that the only type of hammer? That's one. What else is there? There's a sledgehammer. I would call them a ball-peen hammer. Does that maybe sound right? Okay. You could also say a mallet. Okay, that's a type of hammer. Those are just 4 that I can come up with off the top of my head. Now, when you also say sledgehammer, that might have a different connotation as well. Some people might say a sledgehammer is only about this long with its handle. Others would say, well, if you're getting a sledgehammer, the handle's at least this long, okay? That's what I mean. That's what it takes to learn about different types of vocabulary, different types of wrenches, perhaps. I can only think of box and open end, okay? And it's not what you would think when you would say, get me a box and wrench. Typically, you would think it looks like a box, like this. But that is the open end. So what does it mean to get a box and wrench? No one knows what a box and wrench is? It's already enclosed. That's right. That's a box and wrench. Okay? So no matter what type of job you're going to do, you're always going to have that types of vocabulary you're going to have to deal with. Okay. So with that being said, okay, this is what you're going to be responsible for at the very earliest next Thursday and going into next week, because this is going to be what's on your final, okay? But you're also going to be evaluated before this. I don't want anyone, well, I'm not going to take the final, so I'm not going to write any of this down. That would be a bad choice on your end, in my opinion, okay? But chances are, if we say it would be a good idea to write this down, what should you probably do? Now, you don't have to do that right now because this is being recorded. You can just go back sometime this weekend, on Monday, Tuesday, just look at it, hit the pause button, and get that content then, okay? Because some of you are busy doing other types of tasks, okay? So now that we've seen, oh my gosh, this must be so much fun, okay? Now, that doesn't mean you need to know the entire axial skeleton. It doesn't mean you need to know the entire appendicular skeleton. We're breaking this up into pieces, okay? So on page 941 in your book, it's got a diagram of the human skeleton, okay? We just break this up into pieces because some of you will be taking human anatomy and physiology next year. That would be a correct presumption, right? How many might that be? 1, 2, 3. Just, okay. All right. Because when you look at this, I counted them, there's only 20 muscles on here. For when you take anatomy and physiology, I think it's probably somewhere up around 80 that you're going to be doing and responsible for. Now, that's a pretty good bargain because do you know how many muscles are in the human body? Around 640. And how many bones are in the human body? How many? A little too high, around 206 to 213. Those 7, it depends, I think, how you count the sacrum, whether it's individual bones or whether it's fused together as one. I believe that's where the discrepancy can come from. But I think the most accepted value is 206. So how we break this apart is when we're looking at the axial skeleton. That's what you would see going right down the middle of your body. It's what is your skull, okay? Now, skull and cranium are 2 different things. That's why we say skull. So it's the entire head region, your rib cage. It's what surrounds your heart, your lungs. It's a protective function. And then your vertebral column, okay? You have cervical vertebrae, thoracic vertebrae, lumbar vertebrae, okay? Then when you look at appendicular skeleton, it's arms and legs. It's your appendages that make up the appendicular skeleton, okay? So that would mean radius, ulna, femur, tibia, fibula, okay? And part of your pelvic girdle, which would be your sacrum, your coccyx, the only bone that ends in an X, kind of useless fact that you might remember from now on. Maybe, maybe not. And then your shoulder girdle, okay, which would be your scapula and I believe your clavicle, because that's how your arms actually attach to the central, if you want to call it the central frame. Okay? So all that. Now, do you need to write this down? Yeah, it would be beneficial. This doesn't take a whole lot of time. Okay? And it's on page 941. There isn't a page number for the muscular system, but we will be going through there. Does anyone want to take a guess why some are written in black, some are written in orange, some are written in blue? Why might that be? Sorry? Well, they are, and they have different, more so different parts, and they would have different functions, okay? These are muscles of the face, we want you to know. These are muscles of the torso. These are muscles of the legs, okay? And so those are what we want you to be responsible for. Okay. And some of these you have probably heard of before.
Biceps.
Okay. There's actually 2 of them, though.
The long head and the short head.
Well, that's true. But which biceps? Brachii? Yeah, because that's the one that's in your arm. Biceps femoris, that's in your leg. That's why I said biceps. There's 2 of them. Okay? So sometimes you can look at the bone and it kind of gives you somewhat of an idea. That's why it's called the femoris. Okay? Same thing with this muscle. It's in the femoral area. So where is your femur located? Someone's got to know where your femur's at. Yeah, it's your thigh area. That's right. Okay? Does anyone happen to know what these 3 would have in common? Semitendinosus, semimembranosus, and biceps femoris. Athletes might know this, or if they participate in athletics. Do your stretches. Why is that? Because
you stretch before you work out, you have less chance of tearing something.
that's true. Or pulling muscle, the most common one, is what? People just use this vague term. Say that again?
Hamstring.
Yeah, your hamstring. These 3 muscles make up your hamstring group. Okay? And then there's actually, we call the quadriceps. How many muscles would make up the quadriceps? Well, it says 3 here, but what's quad? quad is actually 4. The reason that fourth one isn't on here is a deep tissue muscle, the vastus intermedius. But again, some of this is go further in depth when you encounter this again in human anatomy and physiology. Okay? And another way we can look at this is not everyone can see it, okay? Because you're sitting in the back row. Danny is doing that. Aaliyah is doing that. And that's it. Those two have something in common that nobody else is doing. Crossing their legs. That's right. Guys sometimes cross their legs. That's true. And some of these also have a common name, okay? And that would be this one. It's called a Tailor's muscle because when women would be sewing back in the late 19th century, maybe early 20th century, okay, they would cross their legs and they would set that on their top leg. It was just easier for them to sew and knit and do things like that. That's why they call it a Tailor's muscle. Okay? Then everyone's using their favorite muscle right now. Where's that one at? Yes, you are sitting on that right now. Okay? Now, oddly enough, these also have more common names like joint stabilizers or synergists or prime movers. You cannot walk, you cannot run without this muscle. It's called a joint stabilizer. So that's more so of a human anatomy trait that you would discuss at that level. Here, we just want to identify what they are. Your vocabulary will be assigned a week from yesterday, which there's a lot. That won't happen until after we get to this mammal project. It's just something I decided to throw in actually today at the last moment. Okay, can I pull this screen down? Yes? Going once, going twice. All right. So what you're about to see will hopefully give you somewhat of an idea what it is like to study human anatomy and physiology. So with that, we will catch up to you next time.